All right. Good evening to those of you on the East Coast. Good afternoon to those of you on the West Coast. Welcome to This Week in Pop Culture, the show in which we give you the goings on in a past said week in the world of pop culture, whether we're talking about film and TV news, sports news, tech news, local news. We try to bring you up to speed so that way you are not left in the wind. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, also co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And typically, I am not alone in talking about the said topics that we have going on this week. I will have Spills joining me momentarily to talk about the said topics, but as it goes with this said show, so much that we need to dive into regarding those said categories that were discussed. So with that, and I think we have Spills with us now, so let me welcome him on. See here. Spills, what's going on, man?
Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for my lateness. I was out celebrating that I predicted who the finals were going to be because I'm so smart. I got such a big brain. But Brandon tried to sneak around and make a topic about something that don't have nothing to do with that.
No, it's just a topic regarding his favorite franchise, which I thought would be worth diving into. But I'm glad you previewed that. But as you can see in the background, we will be talking about a couple of trailers that did go down this past said week, that were released this past said week, of two upcoming, highly anticipated seasons for two shows. One being on HBO Max and the other one being on Disney Plus. So stick around for that. You already kind of have a spoiler there that we have there in the background and for what you saw with the promo that we have. But just as Spills mentioned, there are a couple of things to dive into on the sports end of things. We will be talking about some NBA stories, one of which being about Spillman's Lakers, but also, to Spill's credit, the team that he had advancing going to the finals, who I didn't have advancing. So, we'll get into that too. So without further ado, Spill, shall we dive in?
Let's get it.
All right, let's get it. So with that, as I always mention with this show, efforts will be made in order to provide this said uh, markers for the said stories that we cover today. So efforts will be made to stop timestamp our stories that we have accordingly. So stick around for that. But with that, I want to be able to start this week's show getting into our sports cooler talk. And as I said at the top, one deals with the the matchup that we will have for the NBA Finals. But before we get to that, talking about Mr. Spills's Lakers. So, and speaking about the Lakers, this is a story that dropped on Wednesday. It was revealed via a source of ESPN that the Lakers had laid off more than a dozen employees as part of a reorganization plan under their new franchise leadership, aka businessman Mark Walter. The layoffs Wednesday affected various departments, including marketing, team communications, team content, and corporate partnerships. Sources told ESPN. This comes in the face of other changes in the last few months, which include Lon Rosen being hired as president of business operations, and also replace who he himself replaced longtime president Tim Harris. You also have Michael Spetner being hired as a chief strategy and growth officer, and Ryan Cantor hired as vice president of global partnerships. Now, getting onto the NBA Finals side of things, just yesterday, the NBA Finals matchup was set as the San Antonio Spurs outlasting the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder, 111.
Tremendous poster, by the way.
Yes, 111 to 103. Though regular season MVP SGA would score 35 points, along with some contributions from Wallace with 17, McCain with 12, and Caruso with 12, it was not enough to get past the combined efforts of Castle, who had 16, Fox, who had 15, Harper, who had 12, Johnson with 11, as well as Vassell, who also chipped in with 11, who were all led by Wemby with 22 points. Now the Spurs are set to take on the Knicks in Game One of the NBA Finals on Wednesday, June 3rd. So, Spills, your thoughts on your team's restructuring as well as the current NBA Finals matchup?
Well, when you go under new ownership, I think that it's important to know that they gonna fire people, ladies and gentlemen. You don't buy something and don't decide that, oh, I'm gonna let these people who I bought it from still run the place. That's not how it goes. You don't do that. If you start dating somebody and they living in their old house with their old partner, we get a new house, baby. We're not staying in that house. Like you got to make a new. We can make it fresh and new. I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 years they get a new Staples Stadium. I just think that that is, obviously par for the course. Corporate restructuring is corporate restructuring. This is a life lesson for you, ladies and gentlemen. If your job gets bought by somebody, start looking for a new job. Sure, you're great at doing your job. People love you, but they may restructure you just because they got somebody that they like to do your job. So I think that that's important. Um, the real restructuring and layoffs that we worry about with this Lakers team, though, is can we please keep LeBron James through the rest of his career? I like Luca and I love Reeves, but we ain't gonna go nowhere without LeBron. So please, ladies and gentlemen, can we please keep LeBron? They about to have a new baby. Hopefully, they like the OBGYN in Los Angeles. They had the other three children in Ohio, but he said he was not going to take no money out of Ohio. So, personally, I hope that that means that we're going to nest and stay in Los Angeles, ladies and gentlemen. No one wants to move while they're pregnant. Sure, LeBron and them have their own, movers. They got movers on movers on movers, but I think that they will stay in Los Angeles.
I do enjoy the ramblings and the tangents that Spills goes on. So hopefully, in that regard, hopefully they do keep LBJ on that team because you know always enjoy talking about the shenanigans that happens over the course of a season. So in that regard, hopefully I do hope that LBJ stays with the Lakers. But to seconding what Spill says, first off, let me just say, it's never an enjoyable thing to have folks that are losing their job. All jokes aside, but when we're talking about business, that is a reality of an organization coming under new management. It doesn't matter what industry you're talking about, whether we're talking about professional sports, whether we're talking about the private sector, whether we're talking about government, whether we're talking about you pick your poison. Any field that you're talking about business wise, when there's a change of leadership, that is a reality that they may clean house of the folks that may reside there uh, uh, upon their entry into coming upon that ownership, because maybe they want to go in a new direction, and maybe they feel by keeping the prior team that exists there, the prior employees that are there, that it may not be a good fit for the trajectory or the path that they're trying to take. So again, never fun, that to have folks lose their job, but it is a reality when we're talking about that what is it, business phrase of restructuring or reorganization is just a very PC way of saying that they
We
want to
firing
let
people.
go of some people. So unfortunately,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But talk to me, Spills, about the NBA Finals side of things. First off, congratulations, your team that you had speculated would advance did advance. So share with me your thoughts.
I'm really excited for Victor Wembanyama. I've been screaming that Victor Wembanyama is the future GOAT. I love LeBron. Love this poster that we've got here for Victor. Just completely getting the revenge that he's always wanted on Chet. Holmgren. Chet Holmgren specifically has been a thorn in Victor Wembanyama's side. Victor has been much like Larry Bird in the past. He's been playing against Chet since they were children, essentially. And Chet has always had a better team than Victor. Um, Victor has, finally overcome the Thunder. I saw cracks in the Thunder's makeup as far as their teamwork is concerned with some of the interviews that they were giving during this playoffs, especially during this last series with the Spurs. I could see, emotionally, we don't talk about it enough, but just like we're saying with this restructuring thing, if the teams are not working well together, it's hard to win. It's very extremely hard to win. So for the Spurs to advance in Game Seven on the road is quite impressive. As they move on to the New York Knicks, I think that the Spurs will be favored, even though the Knicks are the team that has been on an 11-game winning streak. But I like Carl Anthony Towns. They're playing through. Carl Anthony Towns can keep up with Victor Wembanyama. Um, I think that Brunson will give his points, but they've got a stellar defensive backcourt with the Spurs. I don't know how you feel about them, but I just got the Spurs. I would say the Spurs in six. Maybe it'll go 7 games, but I got the Spurs in six. What about you?
So first off, let me say welcome to the other side, because I know last week we were talking about the Knicks and you were convinced that the Knicks were going to win the title this time last week. So I'm glad you came to your senses there, Spills. But in talking about the Thunder, uh, this is probably going to be something that's going to haunt them for a while, because they did have the momentum going into Game Six. They had an opportunity to close out the Spurs, and they allowed them to get another game, which resulted in, I feel like, that momentum shift of them being able to take Game Seven. I feel like, the fact that they were able to push it to Game Seven really put the pressure on the Thunder, and I don't think that the Thunder were able to meet that expectation by having it go all the way to Game Seven. Um, like I said, it's unfortunate. They very much had an opportunity to be able to close it out, and they didn't finish the deal. When we're talking about Chet Holmgren, similarly with him, he didn't have a terrific series. So hopefully this is a misnomer. Hopefully it's an aberration of him being able to learn from this experience of now knowing that he really is not going to be able to, because I feel like in the prior championship run, he had, he was a terrific addition to that team, but I feel like this particular season, um, there have been instances where he was delegating or relying too much on SGA to kind of save the day, and I feel like that happened even as deep as the Thunder team is. It felt like things felt a lot tighter in this Game Seven, where there were people who normally are pretty loose when it comes to playing throughout the season and providing their efforts in the said games this season. That things became a lot tighter, and people that normally are a lot looser were a lot more hesitant to be aggressive in being able to score the ball. And we've seen it, not just in prior series, but throughout the regular season, that they've demonstrated that they can. But it felt like they were too reliant upon SGA, in this game. And SGA needed all that he could, get from his teammates, which again, I've talked about it a lot, on the show. They're a deep team, but I just feel like they just didn't they played they played kind of tight, as if they were hesitant to demonstrate what they've been demonstrating all season, which is how deep their team is, and how you have players on any given night that can, drop 20, 30 points. Like we've seen it. So it's unfortunate that they weren't able to provide that same effort with this conference finals. So as I said, hopefully it's an aberration. Hopefully it's a learning lesson. But I have a feeling this is going to be a perennial matchup for the next couple of years, unless we see instances where teams are broken up. I don't know if they're going to do that with the Thunder. I know sometimes in some cases you have teams that get broken up when they aren't successful in closing the deal of getting the title. I see that happening with some of the other teams that didn't make it through. I feel like something's going to happen, with the Cavs because they need to be able to make that one last move to kind of get them over the hump. With some of the other teams as well, I know we've had changes with some of the head coaching positions that we've seen already, like with the Magic. Same goes with the Pistons. I feel like some of those teams that we've had in those those semifinals, those conference semifinals, and those first round matchups, including your Lakers, Spills, are going to need to make some moves, and I see them making moves in order to properly um, develop lineups that can compete against two teams that will likely be right there year after year, in the next couple of seasons. Now, when it comes to the Spurs going against the Knicks, I too agree that when we're talking about the Knicks, that it's I don't feel like it's going to be a sweep. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt is that they're going to get a couple of games in there, maximum 2 games. But yeah, I don't see them getting past the Spurs. I do have the Spurs. As I said, I mentioned this multiple times. Regardless of me being of missing dropping the ball with the Thunder getting to the finals, one thing that I did say is that whoever makes it out of that conference final is going to be our NBA champion. Um, and I feel like I said, it's unfortunate for the Knicks because I feel because of the fact that the East is not as loaded as the West that it kind of I don't want it to minimize the incredible season that the Knicks have had, but I feel like it's going to be all for naught because it's not going to result in them holding the finals trophy when it's all said and done. Um, Unless we see some additional moves, over this offseason with players that are in the West moving east to some East teams, yeah, I don't see it happening. And even if it means that the Knicks, are kind of like the Cavs, how the Cavs were for a while, where they, time and time again are making it out of the East. I still don't see a team right now, even some of the top teams in the East, getting past either the Thunder or the Spurs. Maybe you feel differently.
I think that I was more convinced that the Knicks would win if they were going to play the Thunder. I think that I saw the issues that the Thunder are having with playing team ball. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. And also their ball sharing. I'm looking at this box score. Chet Holmgren shot 2 shots last night. Um, Hartenstein shot 7 shots. Lou Dort is their starting small forward. He only shot 4 shots. Sure, they had 14 shots from Caruso, 12 shots from McCain and Jay Williams. They had 9 shots for him. But for the bench to be out shooting the starters, that's not winning basketball. There's a reason why you should be a starter. And if you're starting for defense, that's great. But if you can only get somebody like Chet Holmgren, who averages 18 a game, to shoot twice in a whole game,
Yeah, that's
um,
ridiculous. But I see.
that's completely ridiculous. And for Shea to be the point guard du jour that everybody says he is, he's supposed to be able to get somebody like Chet in the game and get him going. He did a lot of scoring the other night. He shot 21 times. He got 35 points, which is great. I think that's his best game in the whole series. But they needed so much more from him and each other. So I'm just shocked that they did so poorly.
I would argue that SGA was SGA. SGA did what he needed to do. I feel like it's more the onus is on Chet because, as you said, scoring 18 points a game, they needed they needed that 18 points in yesterday's game, and there were instances where I'm like, that's a shot that Chet can make. That's a shot that
Hmm.
he would normally shoot. Why is he not shooting? It's like he wasn't playing with confidence, as if he didn't want to he 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 was too reliant. Like I said, I feel like the team was too reliant on SGA because the fact that they were in a game 7, I feel like folks that otherwise would play loose and play with aggression and play their game, that they didn't want to meet the moment, and that they kind of deferred too much to SGA to kind of carry them through. And don't get me wrong, SGA is an MVP for a reason, but it there have been times where SGA has struggled in this postseason, and rightfully so, because he is a target for other teams when they are playing them in their given matchups. But because their team is deep, that he's been able to rely upon performances from his teammates to kind of help with the load, and that didn't happen in game 7. And as I say, I think it's because of the fact that it got to a game 7 that you know the folks got tight. It got
Yeah.
real tight. They weren't willing. They were deferring because they didn't want to. I feel like didn't want to be the cause of discussion of being the reason why they lost the game. They wanted to be able to defer to somebody else and not take that responsibility. So that's just me.
How much do you think, they were very physical in the beginning of the series,
Yeah.
but at the end of game 5, when the Thunder were blowing them out, the Spurs started playing physically and not playing physically in a way. Oftentimes, NBA teams, when they play physically, they're just fouling the foul. Um, when they put those guys in late in the game to push the guys like McCain around and Chet, it seemed to be that they were sending a message that we're not going to play any more of the ticky tack foul stuff, and they changed the game. Do you think that that had a effect on the Thunder mentally? I think that once that started happening, I don't see that the Thunder were there mentally for it.
I think it was this. They, as I said, by the time we were getting to game 6, they were leading the series 3 games to 2. They had
Hmm.
every opportunity to keep their foot on the gas and to close out this series, and they didn't do that. I think that they took their foot off the gas by the time they got to game 6, and then once they saw that they got blown out in that game 6 game, they were like, oh snap, like, and then they were really put on notice by the time they got to game 7. I feel like game 6 was that defining game. It could have been all said and done because they already had the momentum going into game 6, and unfortunately, I feel like they kind of took their foot off the gas. But by taking the foot off their gas, and they saw what happened when they didn't take their foot off, what happened when they did take their foot off the gas, that they got a little nervous there, in terms of how this game 7 could turn out of uh, uh, because of what had transpired and the momentum shift that transpired in that game. So um, it will be
Looking
interesting. Go ahead.
looking forward, do you think that since the Knicks have been off essentially for 2 weeks now, that they will show signs of rust for having run shot over the East to play the Spurs, or do you think that the Spurs will have some fatigue for finally overcoming the seemingly insurmountable mountain of the Thunder?
Uh, well, the Spurs are a younger team, so I don't feel like the fact that they had such a dogfight against the Thunder is really going to do too much there. If anything, I
Hmm.
feel like kind of like what would happen if you are really, if we're talking about it in athletic terms of jogging, right?
Hmm.
That you initially on that those first couple of times you get really tired, but then you catch your second wind. I feel like now that they kind of gotten over that hurdle, that now they're going to have their second win going into this next series, because now that they have proof of concept now of their style of play, and the players that they have on their team, and knowing that they can beat the most elite teams in the league, not only the most elite teams but the defending champion. I feel like they're going to be able to carry that on, carry that confidence from that series into, this final series. And when we're talking about matchups, we've seen time and time again that with Jalen, as incredible of a player that he is, he does struggle defensively, especially against guards that are bigger. And
Hmm.
yeah, I can't see him really having a successful time of guarding the guards that you have on that team. Because a lot of times, when you have a player that is, a defensive liability, they may be able to hide him on another player, but who are they going to hide him on? They're not going to be able to
Yeah.
hide him on Fox. They're not
Nope.
going to be able to hide him on Harper, and they're not going to be able to hide him on Castle. So, like, pick your poison of the guards that you're going to have bringing up the ball. There isn't anyone that I can see out of those players that I just named that he's going to have an easier time with. He's going to have a difficult time with all three of those players, and those are the only particular players that he may potentially have to defend against going into this series. And then on top of that, too, when we're talking about, I feel like there will be bodies that they'll be able to throw at Wimby. So I feel like it's really going to come down to the guard play, because you do
I
have Chad that they can send against Wimby, and they have a couple of other bodies. So I feel like that will be enough to kind of break even with Wimby in terms of his style of play. But yeah, when it comes to those guards that they have, I feel like the Knicks are really going to struggle against them.
okay. Yeah, I think that that's possible. I do worry about the rust for the Knicks, though they were firing on all cylinders before the game stopped.
They were.
Uh, they did beat the Spurs already in the NBA Cup, the much coveted NBA Cup. I know that you try to malign it, but now it seems that the teams that win the NBA Cups be good in the playoffs.
Now,
Uh, the Lakers, the year that we went to the conference finals.
now,
I don't want to say that's not a good thing, but being able to win a bunch of games in a row is a harbinger of championship basketball. But I just think that it's very interesting to see. I think that it's very fitting that the Knicks are playing the Spurs for the time that they've finally come to get somebody like Victor Wembanyama. We can put our foil hats on. Do you think that they made it be Victor Wembanyama when the Knicks won so that they can showcase him in the biggest media market, or do you think that that's just Victor's good?
nah, man, Victor's good. Like, I was watching
Yeah.
that game, and I mean, there were shots where, with any other player, those were impossible shots for him, for a player to be able to make. And there were times in that game 7 game, time and time again, where he was pulling up from three like it was nothing, and hitting them. So, like, and having the confidence too to be able, in a tight game like that, in a game 7 of the conference finals, to be able to come down the court, and to just be able to pull up and take those types of shots and make them. Um, yeah, I've seen it time and time again throughout this series, where I'm like, wow, this guy is amazing. And it is scary too, because again, he's not
He's just a
one of,
baby.
yeah, he ain't that old, y'all. Like, he's young. And then even to talk about the team that's surrounding him, and this is, when we're talking about being able to draft properly, like Castle. Again, another
Oh
guy who's
yeah.
not that old, y'all. Like, this is year
They're
2.
all on rookie deals. They all on rookie deals.
So, like, it's scary. It's kind of like the same thing with the Thunder, which is why I said this is going to be an interesting West. West for a couple of years, where it's kind of like what we have with the Bulls and the Jazz, where time and time again they're meeting each other, in the postseason again and again and again, and we have these like legendary matchups for the postseason that that we never forget and will continue to talk about for years to come. So as long as they keep these teams together, and I don't feel like the Thunder losing in Game 7 is going to be enough for the franchise to break up this team. I feel like they'll just think that it was just an aberration. And then on top of that too, like they have so many pieces draft wise that I don't feel like there's really any concern about getting rid of the core that they have of being able to get draft picks, because they going into a couple of years they have decent draft picks going forward. So they're set. It's not really anything that they have to kind of relinquish to be able to still remain competitive as a title contender. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of years with that matchup for sure.
Yep. And I just, just seeing just to talk about Victor Wembanyama just a little bit more. I know that we've talked
Yeah,
about him a lot.
for
Seeing
sure.
him on the sideline, he was encouraging what's his name? This guy's name is Carter Bryant. He's
Yeah,
telling Carter Bryant on the sidelines. He said, "I'm proud of you, man." Like he's like, yeah, I could just, I
the
just could
poise.
see
Yeah,
like
the poise, the
the
maturity and the
poise, but
poise.
also the understanding that this is truly a team game, and you cannot win if people don't have buy-in. And I think that um, there was even a point in Game 5 where the coach was very upset with Carter Bryant, and Victor pulled him aside as a true leader and a team lead said, "Hey, man, we need you. I believe in you. This is what we got. I still am here with you." I said that last week. I said, I don't know if the Thunder can overcome a team that is locked in. Like I've watched basketball for many years. Teams that be arguing with each other when it comes down to it cannot win. So I'm interested to see these are two teams that seem to be very locked in. The Knicks are always on podcasts together. We haven't really talked about the Knicks here. We've talked about the Thunder because, I mean, the Spurs because obviously they just won last night. But I think that the Knicks are very locked in. I think that they're good teammates. I worry about the injury to Mitchell Robinson that may be trouble for them. Even though I know it's a broken finger, that will probably be taped. We all got old basketball injuries that you just tape down and you try to go. But we'll see what happens with it. We will really see.
For sure, for sure. But let us know in the comments your thoughts, guys. Whether we're talking about the restructuring that's happening with the Lakers, or even the finals matchup that we know we now have with the Thunder and the Knicks. Who do you guys have? You can let us know down below. But with that, we're going to get into our main topic story. Of course, we're going to be talking about a couple of the trailers that dropped this past week. We're going to be talking about the X-Men trailer, but before we get there, I wanted to talk about the House of the Dragon trailer that dropped on Friday for the third season of the Game of Thrones prequel, which continues, the story of the civil war between the Targaryens. The series is set to be unleashed on June 21st. Spills, before we hop into the X-Men, real quick, your thoughts on House of the Dragon. Are you excited for it?
Ladies and gentlemen, I've decided that even though I said it before, many, many episodes, that I don't care about this show, I'm going to watch every episode and we're going to talk about it for y'all. For y'all, the fans of this show. I know it's a lot of y'all out there. I don't really care about this show. I like dragons, sure. But, I'm not into the incest of this show, but you got to get over it. So I've decided we're going to watch this House of Dragons. It comes on this summer. I don't have anything to do on Sunday evenings. I'm here talking with y'all on at 8:48. So I'm going to watch it. We're going to do recaps, ladies and gentlemen. We might even do a simulcast where I'll talk about the show and y'all can chime in with us so that we can
Okay.
do a
All
show.
right. Okay.
I'm
You heard it
committing
from
to
Phil. You
watching
heard it from Phil. So
House of Dragon, ladies
they're
and
going to be
gentlemen.
watching some Game of Thrones in the Spills household. I hear you, man. I hear you, man. I mean, I've been watching the series since its inception. Um, I know that like what you were talking about, those story elements are not really your cup of tea. Um, and I mean, Game of Thrones is infamous for all the craziness that can go down in that show. A lot of WTF moments that have happened across many of the shows. Whether we're talking about the main series run, whether we're talking about Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which we just had, that actually kind of takes place going forward from House of the Dragon, and then House of the Dragon, which is going the furthest back uh, thus far that we've had in the timeline for Game of Thrones. And from my understanding, there's going to be even more Game of Thrones in the future that's going to go back even further. But at least now, while we have House of the Dragon, always cool to have dragons in the show. It's always fun when we're talking about Game of Thrones, the intrigue and the craziness that happens with people trying to get on this, on this chair, as ruler, and the conniving that happens with all these various parties and to be able to be able to sit on that throne. Um, when we're talking about the just Game of Thrones in general, I know sometimes there has been a criticism that there's so much going on. There's so many different characters, and sometimes it can be hard to kind of keep track of it all. And I'll be honest with you, at least in the original run of the series, um, it got kind of bloated there, where you know there were so many characters that a lot of times you had to go back and say, okay, that's who. This is the cousin of this character who did this in season two, and now they weren't in season three, but now they're popping back up to have a story arc in season four or season five. There were instances of that where it's like, oh right, I forgot about that character, because there's just so many characters within this universe. But to the with that, with that perspective and that criticism that I have of the original run of the show, even though I've enjoyed the show, that was something that I kind of had to battle with going into the original run. But at least with things like A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, that was a really intimate, self-contained story. So you were able to enjoy it for what it was, because there were a finite amount of characters. Same goes with House of the Dragon. While House of the Dragon is still in its early days, only being a couple of seasons in, it's still manageable, because as I said, it's a civil war with this ruling family of the Targaryens. And so at least you have that basis of the Targaryens. You may have a couple of ancillary characters here and there, but for the most part, at least for right now, in these first couple of seasons, it's been the Targaryens there. So that's kind of helped, I feel, rein in kind of the issue that, as much as I enjoyed the original run, it's kind of reined in that issue that I had, where it felt like characters came and went, and sometimes they would have an absence for a whole season, and then the expectation was for you to hop right into where they picked up a whole season later, or even two seasons later. So definitely excited for the show, because it was left off at an interesting point. So I'm curious to see um, how they are going to pace this show, because spills. That's one thing that I talk about time and time again with given shows. A lot of times they do a terrific job of kind of bringing us back into the world of a show with an incredible couple of first episodes. But what often happens time and time again is that they don't have the best success of kind of wrapping things up with the things that they've introduced in the season by seasons end. So hopefully it's paced in such a way where while they will be able to kind of hook us in those first couple of episodes, they're able to have a nice solid arc going forward for the season, and leaving it off at a effective point going into the next season.
Yeah, I'm committing, ladies and gentlemen, to join in into the House of Dragon
Hey, we
world.
can do a weekly show. If you want to do a weekly show, let me
We could
know. If
just
you
do a
committed now, we
simulcast.
can do a weekly
I'm gonna
show.
be
You heard it here
confused all the
first,
time.
y'all.
That's what this the hook of this show was gonna be. I don't
You
know
heard
what's
it here
going on.
first, y'all. I mean, if
I don't trust. I know it got Super
you don't
Saiyans
put
on
them
the
on the
show,
spot,
so I'm already talking about the Super Saiyans. I know that they have
you
a
put
Super
them on the spot.
Saiyan
You committed. You
uncle
committed.
niece. I'm committing. I'm committing,
Okay.
ladies and
All
gentlemen.
right. You heard it here first. So I will keep
House
you
of
guys posted. We
Dragon
will do a House of the Dragon show.
Super Saiyan edition. That's right. We're gonna talk about the Super Saiyans on there, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm
That's a
interested
bet.
in the show. I'm interested. I'll do anything for content right now, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here for you. I'm a man of the people. I love you all dearly. I'm interested to see what they do with the show. They got great graphics, obviously. HBO got more money than God. They buying new shows. So I'm just very interested to see what they do with the show. How about yourself? Like I
I
just think
mean,
that that's it.
yeah. I mean, you've covered everything. I guess that was the big thing. Will we or won't we do a show? One thing that I haven't announced yet, I will announce now. Now that we are getting into this next story, is that there are plans, folks, for a breakdown show of X-Men 97.
Oh yeah,
So
there you go.
I do plan on doing X-Men 97, but before we do that, let me just give a breakdown of a story here. So this happened on Wednesday. X-Men 97 dropped the trailer for a second season, promising our favorite mutant team taking on the villainous Apocalypse across time. Teasing more characters and their respective powers, the series is set to make its return on Disney Plus on July 1st. So as I said, Spills, you guys have heard it here first. That there's every intention of us being able to do a weekly show on X-Men 97. So I'll ask you, Spills. Are you excited about 97? Did you have a chance to catch the initial season of the revamped show?
Oh, I catch the original season of X Men. Did you know that that's a Whitney Houston song? Whole time, this was the X Men theme song was a Whitney
Yeah.
Houston song. I'ma be your baby tonight. Who knew that? Who knew that? The internet tells you stuff you ain't even know. You ain't even know that was a Whitney Houston song.
Yeah, it's scary.
But
It is. Yeah.
it's scary
It's
how good that
scary
is.
that yeah, how close that song is to the yeah X-Men theme song. So I
Yeah.
I wouldn't
So
be surprised. But yeah, go ahead.
I'm very excited for the season. Obviously, no spoilers, but maybe they will have a good hand dealt to them in this season. Let's just say that. I think that, obviously there were some things that happened in the last season that wouldn't have happened in the show on Fox, because obviously that show was still for children. And this is clearly for us. But I just am shocked that they are ready for a new show. I think that they are still going strong with the X-Men on Disney Plus. I think that they're doing a great job with revamping the show. So I just am excited for the new season. I love the X-Men. They're like one of my first superhero teams that I ever fell in love with. I think that they're the first, like, before the Avengers, before the Super Friends. It was Ninja Turtles and them. I think that those are the two superhero teams that we fell in love with. So for me, I'm just happy. How do you feel about the new season?
So I'm definitely excited for this upcoming season. There was a lot that went down in the first season. They surprisingly covered a lot of ground in terms of the arcs that they did, not just with Goblin Queen, with Sinister, and being able to tease what was coming next with Apocalypse. There are a couple of characters that may potentially switch sides if we know how Apocalypse operates, especially with bringing back characters that we thought may have bitten the bullet this past season or are in critical condition from this
Oh
past
yeah.
season. There is a potential there, hint, hint, that they may switch sides at least momentarily, and what they can transform and can become as a result of Apocalypse. So, I'm very excited about those possibilities. So yeah, there is a lot to be excited about. And as I said, if anything is to go by what we saw in the trailer, we're in a treat, in for a treat, I should say, with the possibilities of characters that can pop up. I mean, at least from the trailer, it's showing that we're dealing with different timelines within the lifespan of Apocalypse, and where the X-Men are. Portions of each team, where portions of each team are in that respective timeline. Whether it's being in the past, whether it's being in the present, or whether it's being in the future. So there's a possibility of so many characters that can pop up because of those respective timelines. Because people don't kind of underestimate some of the characters that can potentially pop up because of their connections to those respective arcs from the comics, or even to the character of Apocalypse himself. When we're talking about Apocalypse in the past, we can potentially bring in a certain character that popped up in the Ant-Man films that was supposed to be the big bad for the live action Avengers films, but now won't be. Hint, hint. Like, we may get that character to pop up in the past because they were a part of that past for Apocalypse, aka Insab Nur. You have some things that can happen in the future with some other characters that are part of the Summers family clan, that I don't want to get into too many spoilers about that, but if they really try to stick to what we've had happen in the comics, there's some things that can happen there with some characters, and some characters that they can bring in that capacity. That would be a lot of fun. So definitely interested to see who they decide to how they decide to adapt it, because there are so many possibilities of what you can do with the character of Apocalypse and the characters that are in his orbit, when we're talking about those different portions of his timeline, of his lifespan, whether it's we're talking about the future, with Age of Apocalypse, whether we're talking about the present, or whether we're talking about the past. So super excited about it.
Yes, most definitely. I think that it's a great it's a great story arc. They have lots of stories to pull from the 90s that they pulled from last season. I thought very masterfully. I really enjoyed how they pulled some of those storylines in.
Yeah, seamlessly too. And I'm like,
Like,
these are like long arcs, and somehow y'all were able to truncate it within this entire first season, and you were able to kind of move through it seamlessly. So for
yeah,
sure.
I think that that's just, truly the X-Men 97. Even the concept is just a concept that, even though it is obviously, we're bringing up shows that were good shows 30 years ago, and we complained about that on this here show, ladies and gentlemen. Stop doing that, write some new shows. They did a good job with this one.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But let us know out there. Are you guys excited for the return of X-Men 97? Are there some characters that you're really excited about making their return on the series? You can let us know down below in the comments. But that is going to do it for us here at Movers and Shakers Unlimited with this edition of This Week in Pop Culture. As always, I'm going to punt it over to Spills. Spills, can you tell folks where they can find you?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you can find me at Truly Spill on Instagram.com. We could talk about House of Dragons and how y'all want me to watch that show and what I should be paying attention to with these Super Saiyans I see on there. But, let's have fun.
Indeed, indeed. You can find me, Brandon Troy, at Brandon Troy ENT on X, and then Brandon Troy underscore ENT on Instagram. With that out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and
Peace, peace, peace,
see y'all
peace.
soon. Peace.